Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Pits To Podium for a very, very special debrief, the 70th anniversary Formula One Grand Prix. And as the name suggests, maximum Verstappen indeed. What a bold strategy it was, Kunal. Actually, before we get down to discussing the race, there is so much that we have to speak about on Pits To Podium as well. And boy, we're having quite a gala over here, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And, I'm going to start by saying absolutely, just so that Lucian gets his laugh. And maybe you should return the favor as well, Soumil, given that, it's a
Absolutely.
chosen word on the show. But, before we get to patting Max Verstappen's back, let's sort of just put down what we would love for you guys to come and see on our show. We've had, we have a playlist called Working in Formula One. We've had the legendary photographer Mark Sutton. We've just had Daniel Ricciardo's trainer, Michael Italiano, on our show, and that video is doing really well. We had Michael Ponisi talking about working in Formula One media and communications. So, you guys are welcome to come check out all that content and subscribe to that playlist because we're definitely adding a lot more videos out there, Soumil.
We are indeed. And let's actually go back to the preview video that we shot on Thursday. Over there, we made a few bold predictions as to what we can expect from the race. And I don't know about all of them, but thankfully we have got 3 of them correct.
Yes, I think my favorite one was probably getting, George Russell's prediction correct, which is that he will have another mega qualifying lap. And, it's very heartening to see that he knows that he's got that one chance on the weekend to shine. And he uses that chance to shine. He's done it, I think, 3 or 4 races in a row. And it's been pretty impressive. The second one was, of course, Charles Leclerc using low downforce, trying to get up the grid. And we saw yet another, my favorite word today is Alonso-esque race. He's getting the Ferrari to finish in positions it probably doesn't dream of finishing in. And then, of course, has to be Max Verstappen using, a different strategy to challenge and beat the Mercedes car, Soumil.
You see, that's what I love about Red Bull. Regardless of the fact that it is whether it's actually looking at Formula One as a complete marketing exercise, or having a completely unique team structure, or coming up with some outrageous design concept, or as we saw today, coming up with a strategy that nobody else even thought about, going in from the alternative strategy from the get-go, from Saturday on, going to the hard tires, and boy, did it pay off handsomely for Max.
It paid off, and he's got second in the World Drivers' Championship in a car which is clearly the second fastest car, by a mile. Of course, Valtteri Bottas lost a chunk of points last weekend when, his tire blew and he had to sort of fall off the points. But who would have ever imagined that, this could have happened? We were all looking at, will Mercedes win all the races this season? And it seemed like such a possibility. But let's remember a few things. Of course, Max had to try the alternate strategy, which he did. But a couple of things which, my race notes have, sort of come up with is for his alternate strategy to work, he was clearly banking on a safety car period, right? And in the last 8 years, the safety car has made at least one appearance at Silverstone. Okay, so that's one point. The second thing that he, of course, benefited from, because, there was no safety car period, was the fact that the Mercedes cars were struggling in the, sort of higher tire pressures, as, Lewis labeled the Pirellis as balloons. So it was the higher pressures that sort of caused them a lot of blistering, and, they had no answer to Max Verstappen's pace.
Exactly. And the thing with Max Verstappen is, whenever everyone else is having any sorts of trouble, we saw so many times again, we saw qualifying for the Syrian Grand Prix as well in the wet. Verstappen comes in. Verstappen is the man that he always, kind of bank on to be right there or thereabout. When someone makes a mistake, even though he'll not have the fastest car, he will do all that he can in his power to try and grab up the pieces, and he did so today as well. Let's speak a bit more about the strategy, Kunal, because Red Bull going for something different, going for something that we didn't really think about initially. I mean, we said in our preview video that they'll be going for maybe a strategy different to Mercedes, but we had no clue that it would pay off the way it did today.
Yes, they actually pulled off something which I'm surprised not other teams at least attempted to do, But again, Red Bull have Max Verstappen in the car who they know can pull off such kind of feats, I would say. And, to be very fair, they were planning this all along the weekend. You could see it coming, like you said. And for once, I actually enjoyed, Max and, GP, his race engineer. They were playing with the Mercedes teams like, Mercedes have been playing with everyone else in the last few races. Remember to hydrate yourself, and you've gotten
Exactly.
sweaty, so, sanitize yourself. And, Max, don't bother saving tires, just go all out. And I think it was a fantastic race from a radio messages perspective as well.
Exactly. Tell you what, though, he was not driving like a grandma at all. He was on fire, Max Verstappen, today. But thankfully, Kunal, a good thing as well. His teammate Alex Albon doing a good job too. I mean, for weeks we have actually said that he's under pressure, he's not doing something right. It's that Red Bull hot seat that always gets you. Hey, it's a good race for him today. We saw him making quite a few good moves.
Yes, he had a good race. I would say it was a qualifying that would have been a bit of a concern because, Pierre Gasly again sneaked ahead of him in qualifying. And, various reasons, I'm sure, which Red Bull are aware of, which we publicly may not always know. But, frankly, I will put it this way. I'm happy to see Alex do what he did. But the question has to be asked, if Max is able to pull that car on the top step of the podium, is being off the podium even acceptable for that Red Bull racing car on a day when Mercedes were actually struggling? And let's remember, if the field was closer, like it has been for 2017, 18, and even till the first half of 19, maybe both the Mercedes drivers wouldn't have ended up being on the podium if the other cars were close enough. But of course, could have, would have, should have.
Exactly. That's the one thing that we tend to go by, but we actually shouldn't. It's all that could have happened in the end. But let's look ahead. Let's look at Mercedes, because normally you would expect them to dominate this kind of race. And the interesting part, Kunal, they've had such a big habit of winning every single weekend that their Twitter handle said, "A tough day in the office for us." No, that's the perfect example of a first world problem in the world of Formula One. A team saying that they had a bad day while finishing second and third. That's just Mercedes standards for you.
I think they were just embarrassed that they had all these tire issues while the others didn't. They were just probably a little upset that they couldn't take the fight to
Yeah.
Max, on an equal playing field as they would have expected. But my heart goes out to Valtteri Bottas. Just what does he need to do to get a little bit of luck going his way? Because he put it on pole, which is crucial, especially if you're fighting somebody like a Lewis Hamilton. He had a very good start. He was leading from the front. He was the favored driver when it came to all the tire strategy. But still, he ended up being in a position where he lost points to Lewis and he lost a position to Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship.
And this sort of thing doesn't work out if you're competing, as Kunal mentioned, against someone like Lewis Hamilton. We know what kind of a tough competitor Lewis Hamilton is. And the crucial thing, Kunal, last week at the British Grand Prix, Valtteri Bottas not really scoring any points at all. And that is a major vacuum that's going to be so hard to fill if Lewis doesn't have a DNF himself. That sort of a thing just really puts the ball in Lewis's favor, even though he didn't end up winning today.
Yeah, but even Lewis Hamilton's strategy, again, Mercedes had to think on their feet. A lot of people would think that, Mercedes favored Lewis and so on. But the fact is, after a point, Mercedes realized that they, instead of choosing between one of their two drivers winning or which one of them winning, they had to just make sure that they try and win the race themselves. So, sort of the team takes precedence over the Drivers' Championship. And it was just unfortunate, in my view, that Valtteri was the driver who was second and not third, because, the way the first pit stops played out, it just allowed Lewis to get track position and sort of try and do something different. And maybe it would have been the same way if Valtteri was sort of, not in the position he was in, and he was third where Lewis was in. So again, could have, would have, should have, but my heart really goes out to Valtteri Bottas, because even on weekends when he puts in a perfect lap and does a perfect race by himself, suddenly Mercedes isn't the most dominant team.
Exactly. It's all really drifting away from Valtteri Bottas, and you've got to feel for him. But calm down, Mercedes. 33 points from a weekend isn't bad. But while on one side we're going to laugh about all this, about Mercedes cribbing about a bad weekend, this is the kind of spirit that puts Mercedes at the very top for such a long time. It's phenomenal. Well, let's move down to one team who have been really struggling to find their spirit. Although the tagline says Essere Ferrari, it's not really that case, but thank goodness for Charles Leclerc. As you mentioned, Kunal, early on in the video, he did an Alonso-esque performance by him, coming in finishing P4. And what was the secret to his success? Because on one side, you have a four-time world champion in Vettel struggling with the same car, and here you have the young Monegas putting in result after result.
I think Sebastian Vettel is now getting the Kimi Raikkonen treatment at Ferrari. Okay. Again, there's no way to prove this. So I'm as right as anyone who disagrees with me. If it was Vettel and Raikkonen in Ferrari this season, Vettel would have finished fourth and Raikkonen would have finished wherever Vettel did. And then everyone would have, said that, Kimi had the bad strategy. The truth is, in Ferrari and Vettel's relationship, we know that they're going through a divorce and they just have to live, under the same roof till the end of the season. And, Vettel for the first time actually went on to radio and say, you messed up, and he said that to Ferrari, which, Ferrari probably weren't expecting. But, I know you started asking about Charles and I started speaking about Sebastian. But Charles is just making it work. He's sort of that guy who's like, okay, I've got a Ferrari and I've got to go and try and score as many points in this race. And he's just going and doing exactly that. And, he's making what we spoke last weekend and have been speaking for the last 10 days. He's making a low downforce setup work in his favor, whereas someone like, a Sebastian is unable to adapt his driving style to that. So again, not putting blames anywhere, just saying that, survival of the fittest, as Darwin, his theory is so popular. Maybe that's what's working for Charles.
Exactly. It is so much fun to watch Leclerc in this persona when he's actually with a struggling car, when he's actually going out there and getting 110% from a really ailing Ferrari. I love to see it. That's, in my opinion, Leclerc is far more impressive in 2020 than he was in 2019. And I'm sure you shared the same opinion too as well, Kunal.
Yes, I agree. And let's remember, he was the only driver in the top 5, or I would say even the top 7, to make a single stop strategy work. Okay, which by itself is, pretty commendable. That's also something Sebastian said in his post-race interview, that maybe we should have tried the single stop, but, probably Ferrari are just not, bothering about the car, the second car in the garage, but I'm pretty impressed with Charles. And like you said, his 2020 avatar is definitely more impressive than his 2019. Of course, two different circumstances under which he's performing. But, given the challenges and the struggles that, Ferrari are having as a team, he's definitely coming of age in 2020.
He is indeed. What happens next for Charles Leclerc if Ferrari struggles? That's a topic for later on. We can literally spend 60 odd minutes on that, speaking where to next for Charles Leclerc and where to next for Ferrari. But let's go. Well, is it top or bottom? Because ideally, in terms of the pace, Ferrari is supposed to be slightly lower down the grid than Racing Point, who have been in all sorts of trouble lately. But they outclassed. I think it would be fair to say Charles Leclerc outclassed Racing Point as a whole collectively. But there was so much hope around Nico Hülkenberg now. Came in, finished P3 in qualifying. Incredible result. I remember getting the notification saying Hülkenberg is in P3. And I was jumping off my seats. Sadly, I couldn't watch qualifying, but that was something that really made my heart go calm. It's something it's a feel-good moment, right? When a driver like this comes back and puts in such a performance. But what happened in the race? Because we saw in the end, Kunal, they had to make a very unforeseen pit stop. So the real reasoning for Racing Point is vibrations. But is it really?
It's a good question. Again, I'm making no suggestions, but I've just, read some data. From lap 32 to lap 44 of the race, Stroll and Hülkenberg had the same lap times. And in the last 5 laps leading to his third pit stop, his lap times were pretty much consistent as well. So there was nothing in the data which suggested that he was struggling. Of course, the team and the driver have both said that, the tire wouldn't have lasted the race and he wouldn't have picked up the points and so on and so forth. So they, of course, pitted him the third time, which saw him drop at that time from 5th to 7th place. And in the meantime, Albon overtook, Lance Stroll, which I'm sure they were expecting as well. So in all, for Racing Point, they didn't really lose a position. They finished 6th, 7th. It's just that, Daddy Stroll's son Lance finished sixth on a weekend when he was completely outclassed by Nico Hulkenberg. Like you said, P3 in qualifying, which to me and to everyone else in the paddock, including the likes of, Helmut Marko, was extremely impressive, because to dial in, a car and to over a single lap and to put it on the edge, literally, is far more challenging from a technical and a driver's point of view than driving 52 laps around Silverstone. Of course, I'm not trying to say that 52 laps of Silverstone isn't challenging, but for a driver to have just settled into a car and out-qualify one of the regular drivers, I think that in itself was a massive statement by Nico. And, at the end of the day, I'm sure he's just happy with the fact that he got to score points on his return and market himself that much more to a potential team for 2021.
That should be so much fun, right? We're seeing Romain Grosjean being slightly disgruntled about his seat as Haas. He isn't really enjoying Formula One as much. We may, I'm not suggesting anything, but we may see Kimi Raikkonen not competing in Formula One beyond the end of his contract, which happens this December. Who knows? Nico Hulkenberg could be in one of those slots. But this actually leads us down very well into the other part. I think the final topic that we have to speak about today, Kunal, it is the rest of the midfield. We've spoken about Racing Point, we have spoken about Ferrari, but there is Renault, McLaren, and thankfully AlphaTauri, who had quite an eventful weekend today. Pierre Gasly doing a superb job.
Yes, Pierre Gasly doing a good job. Danny Kvyat, of course, ended up scoring the point, though. I was a little surprised. Of course, Kvyat was just less than a second away from the points, but that's how it is. So we had Ocon, Norris, and Kvyat take up positions 8, 9, and 10. And just again goes to show how competitive the midfield is, because somebody like Carlos Sainz was running P5 last weekend, and then he couldn't score this weekend, and McLaren overall just struggled a bit. I'm just waiting for them to confirm if it was also the tire pressures that were raised and so on. But in all, great to see Esteban score his points. Great to see Kvyat score his points after his big shunt last weekend as well. And for Norris, points in his home race. And again, 7 out of 10 teams ended up scoring points in the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. Now, the only unfortunate part for me was that the team that won the first ever Formula One Grand Prix back in 1950, 70 years ago, Alfa Romeo, struggled to score a point. And of course, they've struggled to score a point ever since the first race of the season. But, that's how the 70 years have gone past.
Yeah, they really have. The time can really be brutal for some people. Alfa Romeo, obviously, not in Formula One for quite a while. Just coming back in 2018 with a new repackaged name, but boy, has it gone wrong this season. They'll obviously be looking to reset the page in 2022, trying to try to actually come up with a solution that really works out for them. But naturally, Kunal, this just brings us back to the entire midfield battle. We can properly discount Williams and Alfa Romeo because they seem to be out of the fight. What can we expect from Renault? Because it was a good couple of weekends for them. We saw the last race they were 4th and 6th. This one they got a good haul of points. The next race could or could not be Spain. Again, we're not really sure about that. The whole pandemic is quite prominent in Spain. It's not like a rock concert that it's prominent, actually. It's growing in Spain. That would be the right word. And Formula One has doubts over whether to go there or not. ELMS has pulled out of Spain, actually. So maybe Formula One could be next on the cards. But let's assume that we have Spain. Where do you think Renault and McLaren would stack up? Because this is the one battle that we have all been waiting to find the result towards.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it's too late in the day to know if Spain is happening or not. So by now, if we don't know, anything, that means it's probably going ahead. That's my guess. I don't know if a last minute change can still be made, because I'm pretty sure that there would be team members already, at the Circuit de Catalunya setting up for the upcoming Grand Prix weekend. But, talking about Renault, something very interesting that I have found. So, the only time they have had 2 cars finish in the points was the last race, which was the British Grand Prix, where they scored 20 points. But in the other 4 races, they've had just 1 car in the points, and that car has finished in 8th place, and they have scored 4 points in each of those races. So their score is 4, 4, 4, 20, and 4. That's where Renault have been. So I'm pretty certain that they want to try and score a little higher than just the number 4, come the next race in Spain.
And that's one number that they'll actually discuss by the end of the season because 4, of course, last lap Lando. What's happening with McLaren, Kunal? I think that's the last thing we can touch up today on. It's been an iffy weekend for them, right? That's the only thing we can say today. It's been slightly off color for McLaren off lately.
Basis basis the stories I've been following on the weekend, McLaren just admit that their rivals have done a better job than them this weekend. It could be down to multiple factors like wind, like tire pressures being one of them as well, the softer compounds being in use as well. So in all, I'm pretty sure they're just happy to have scored points because they're still fourth in the championship with 53 points. Racing Point, they could still be docked 15 points because that was the ruling till the penalty
Exactly.
was sort of appealed again. And Renault is in sixth with just 36 points. So in a way, they seem a little secure out there. And in the drivers' championship, Norris would of course be a little upset to have lost fourth place to Charles this weekend. But in all, it's just about maximizing your performance every weekend. That's the stage where McLaren are in 2020.
And speaking of maximizing, I think that's the note we can end on. Max Verstappen maximizing every single lap, every single opportunity. What a race it was in the end. What a fun one it was to watch. Once again, Kunal, thank you so much for being a part of this debrief. As always, it's been a fun weekend. I think a fun couple of weeks at Silverstone. And maybe, hopefully at least, we can look forward to the next race at Spain.
Yes, I'm absolutely excited to end the show by saying absolutely one more time, just because we started with this. But yes, I'm going to see you guys and see you, Soumil, at another video, in the next few days where we will look forward to the Spanish Grand Prix. And we will again start by saying absolutely.
Indeed. Well, once again, folks, thank you so very much for watching this video and also to listen to this on the Inside Line Formula One podcast. If you like this one, please feel free to leave a like and share this video with your fellow Formula One fans. As always, it was myself, Soumil Arora, and Kunal Shah here with me. And see you at another video. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.